Well, the big news, if you are a Warriors fan, isn't necessarily good news, but it was broken on breakfast by Michael Carrayannis here on SEN. Breakfast with Jimmy Smith this morning. Michael Carrayannis had this to say.
Tohu Harris will retire immediately. He only played 14 games last year before his season was ended because of a wrist injury. I don't think that's come up as good as he would have liked. He was off contract at the end of this year with an option for 2026, but injuries have just caught up with him. He looked battered, as he said. He looked like a mummy a little bit, the way he was playing with his knees and elbows all strapped.
Taped up.
Just looked struggling. Like he was struggling to get through games, but he was so important for the Warriors and had such an amazing career. It leaves a hole because you've got Sean Johnson out the door now, Adam Fanua-Blake, and Tohu Harris. So there's a lot of experience, a lot of big game players out of that club.
Oh, Scope. Obviously not the news any Wars fan wants to hear. Their captain hanging it up. I mean, obviously with good reason. Injuries catching up with him. He's only 33 years of age, which, I mean, for in the NRL, I suppose that's not that old in the modern NRL. What was your first reaction to the news, mate?
Mate, just so firstly, just want to speak about my experience playing against Tohu Harris. The back end of my NRL career, he was sort of just coming through on the Storm system. He's been a great servant for the game. He's always played it the right way. He's got a lot of respect around the league, and yeah, I sort of just echoing what Carrayannis and Jimmy Smith were saying there. You could see last year he was clearly banged up. There were games where I remember Webster was getting interviewed after the games, and he just couldn't give an answer on sort of the timelines for Tohu, because it was. It's that part of his career where, in terms of life, he's still young. But in footy years, 32, 33, with how tough he played the game, feels like for the last 6 or 7 years, he's been in the middle compared to, when he started his career on the right edge for the Melbourne Storm. So, yeah, it's a big hole to fill. Luckily, they've got the James Fisher-Harris signing now has just got bigger and bigger, Considering, after that they lose, Adam goes the other wall. Adam was the first domino, sorry. Shawnee announces his retirement. Now Tohu Harris doesn't make it, or he makes it just into the new year before he finishes up his career. So huge job for Webster after all off the back of that momentum that they had in 2023. Sort of faded a little bit in 2024. Now you lose your most senior players in terms of games and runs on the board. So huge year for him, and I'm really looking forward. We're going to talk about the enforcers that have made the switch to different clubs, and there's no out of the 6 enforcers that we got. James Fisher-Harris has clearly got the biggest job now moving forward off the back of this news.
And he's clearly a player who can, James Fisher-Harris has that gravitas. Because I suppose you're not just losing one of your key medals, you're losing in your captain, one of the leaders in the club, which, do you think James Fisher-Harris has that sort of characteristic that he can fill in that leadership role as well?
Leadership, yes, no doubt. Got no doubt about that at all. We'll talk about it a little bit later on without sort of referring too much, because I want to sort of break them down specifically a little bit later on about enforcers. Leadership, yes. The skill part of it, Tohu Harris is so underrated with his nice soft hands before pre-line and post-line. When he takes the ball in the line, we see it's across the league now. Isaiah Yo's, the Cameron Murrays, they can all sort of run to the line, have an option on the outside with a big middle, either run themselves, play short, or flick it out the back to some shape with a half out the back. All the best locks have got that in their game now, so that's going to be sorely missed because he was their guy, and then they used to bring Dylan Walker off the bench, and he would come on when the forwards would get a little bit tired, and he would have some joy. But when he went into the starting role last year, it didn't suit him as well because he was going into the fresher, bigger forwards during that time. So I don't know if the plan will be to give Dylan a crack at it to begin with to see if he starts in the 13 jersey. But if I was Webster, I'm trying to keep Dylan Walker in that 14 role, coming off the bench, playing them when they're fatigued, and see if we can find another option internally that they've got there at the Warriors.
Well, the other thing with the 14 role is that he offers some versatility in that if you have an injury in some of the other positions, Dylan Walker can play sort of more positions than just.
Yeah, good point. He
lock.
plays 80 minutes, and
Yeah.
then Dylan Walker shifts into either playing 6 sometimes, plays centres. I think he, popped up dummy half there a couple of times when required. So, yeah, good shout with that.
What about their other recruit other than James Fisher-Harris is their other forward recruit is Erin Clark.
Erin Clark,
He's come over from the Titans. How do you see him fit? He's played a little bit of lock, I believe.
Yep.
But predominantly played off the bench. How do you see him fitting in?
I think my most obvious forward pack now with the Tohu Harris news is Mitch Barnett and James Fisher-Harris up front, Kurt Capewell and Jackson Ford on the edge, and we moved Murata near Cora. I think you take the sting out of the game with him for the first 25 minutes. He's played edge, he's played middle, so he is versatile as well. You leave both Dylan Walker and a guy like Erin Clark, and he can sort of come on. He sort of shifted from a dummy half to a lock to almost playing like a smaller, a hybrid front row role that the Bulldogs were running at the back end with the Titans. So I think that's where they may go. And then you've got bigger bodies like Tom Ale, Bunty Afoa, and the like to sort of figure out who's going to play 16, 17 for them.
Now, if there is a silver lining to this, it does leave the Warriors with some cap space. I think reportedly about $500,000 now they've got in the cap. Just the timing is not ideal in that now we're sort of outside that window where there's a bunch of talent on the market where you can spend that. How, like, if you're the Warriors, how are you looking to spend that?
Well, you can't really. Like, I think they're going to, I think if you have some salary cap left over, you can push it into the following season. I think you get to do that for one season only. So if they do have some salary cap space, I think that will be what happens.
That's a smart play.
Maybe, yeah, because at this time, the one that stands out in them and the target that everyone sort of has been associating in the last month or two has been Brendan Smith, the Cheese. Now, it's been widely reported for a while now that it hadn't quite worked out with Cheese and the Roosters, but I can't see the Cheese. I can't see him going back to New Zealand, even though I'd love it.
Really?
No, I just think he's settled here. I think he likes it here in Sydney, despite probably not playing up to his standards that he set at Melbourne. I think he was building into it last year just before he got injured. So I think he's got some unfinished business here in Sydney. I think he would like to go out with a bang with the Roosters, and I just think he likes the Sydney lifestyle. So I think the Warriors bank that $500,000, and they save it for the cap for the following year.
Oh, so you don't like, because my first thought was, this is a perfect perfect opportunity for them to go after the Cheese. I didn't, because I also love seeing Kiwi players who play well for New Zealand going back to the Warriors and building that real Kiwi identity in the Warriors side. So
it was like when Isaac Luke went back. He had his stint back there in New Zealand. Sort of. I'd love to see it. I just don't think it will happen. Like, that's just sort of getting I've been around Cheese a bit. I know Cheese likes it here in Bondi. So I'd love to see it. I think he'd look cool in a Warriors jersey. And I remember when Kieran Foran went back, and he didn't have the best stint there, but it was cool to see Kieran go back there because at the time he was the sixth for us at New Zealand, and he goes back and he had Sean Johnson and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, and it was supposed to be the dream team. I think Isaac Luke was playing there at the time as well, but it doesn't always work out that way.
Well, Kieran's done what a lot of Kiwis do, is retire to the Gold Coast, essentially, which is beautiful. Actually, Josh on the text line saying Cheese's family is in Queensland. Could you see him making his way up there somewhere, potentially?
Just depends on the fit. Depends on the fit and what team. The Gold Coast Titans, I think they're quite happy with Verrills and Chris Randall. I think they like their situation up there with those two. It'll just depend on the fit with Cheese. He's a huge personality, don't get me wrong. So you've got to have strong leadership. Like, if I ever seen Cheese leaving a team like the Roosters, then Wayne at the Rabbits stood out because Cookie had moved on, so that chat around him, and then a guy like Desi at the Titans would make a lot of sense as well. Yeah,
all ahead. Beautiful. Now, new West Tigers signing Sunia Turuva has spoken to the media about the Tigers and playing under Benji Marshall.
Bruh, I remember, bro, you should have seen, I was telling my dad this story that when I first met Benji, like, in talks, bruh, he was talking to me, I wasn't even listening, I was just, like, starstruck by what was happening. Like, he was, like, talking to me, so, and my manager was like, bro, are you all right? And I was like, bruh, I was just lost, I couldn't believe it. And then he was just talking to me like, bruh, you don't have to treat me like that. I'm like, I'm one of the boys, so... No, that was pretty cool to hear from him, and it was pretty cool to see. But no, now I'm used to it. I see him every day now. But that first day when I first met him, I was just like, bro, this guy done the flick pass in the GF. That's what I was picturing as he was talking. I was like, everything he was saying, it was just going in one ear, out the other. But it's pretty cool to be coached by someone like Benji.
Oh, wow. You know what I love too, in terms of in this day and age of athletes with media training, a young athlete starting his sentence with brah.
He got a bit of fox about it, eh?
Oh,
he sounded, he's got a little bit of fox about him, a bit of Josh Adokar.
Yeah.
And mate, it's so infectious, those sort of personalities. And he definitely has an aura about him, Benji. Like he's not, you could tell the energy that he had for Benji was, a lot of younger players would have that because that would have been the era that they grew up in, either, high school or primary school. For me, Benji, 2005 was my first year out of high school. So Turuva is probably like primary school, 12s, 13s at the time. And Benji does that flick pass. And I've met Benji before a couple of times. I'm sure you have it during your time at Fox. He does have an energy about him. He has an aura for sure.
There's an internal just self-assuredness about the way he carries himself and the way he is that, He's just he has that sort
and
of.
he's a cool cat too. Like so you meet him and you're like, oh, you think about the flick pass, you think about all those years where, even when I played against him, I didn't get to meet him until post career outside of the footy field, and he is one of those guys you're like, he's pretty cool. Like Benji's, he lives up to how you perceived he would be.
Is there anyone you've come across that you've been starstruck either in your playing career or post playing career? Who's caused you to be starstruck?
Oh, easy. I'm similar to Turuva. I got to Manly, and Joey was our halves coach.
Oh,
Joey Johns. So he was the GOAT for me growing up. Played against my dad. My dad told me some funny stories, and one of the first things Joey comes up and said to me when I got to training, he goes, "Your old man headbutted me in the '95 World Cup when we packed in for a scrum," and it was just like a different era back then. But to have Joey come up. Not necessarily recognise me, but refer to my old man straight away. He was by far the number one.
That's Joey playing hooker too.
Yeah, so Joey played hooker because maybe I think 95 either Sticky or maybe Jeff Tuvey was the half.
Geez, that's not a bad
potentially
not a bad reason to keep you out of half. Either of those names.
Yeah, my dad was a lock at the time, and he was filling in a dummy half as well. But Joey, in terms of like. It took me, I don't know, all through the preseason from when we started in November till mid-January before the game started to get comfortable around Joey.
Mate, I can tell you as a Newcastle nerd, my first Joey interaction was, it was an Australia Day. We were on the squirt at a mate's place. I would have been just 18 in Merriweather, and Joey was pushing his then baby in a pram. Obviously, like a pretty newborn baby. We'd sort of clocked him walking up the street. We knew he lived in the area, and we're like, "Oh man, Joey Johns is coming!" And so we're out the front, and we're all like got our Crown Lagers because we thought we were cool. We thought we were having a classy Australia Day, and we're like, "Joey, come in for a beer," and he just looks at us and goes, "Yeah, maybe on the way back, boys." We're like, "Oh my God, Joey might be coming for a beer on the way back."
I'm surprised he actually didn't come back and have a beer with you. Now that we know him a little bit more,
exactly.
and I'm way more comfortable with him. I'm surprised he didn't come back, drop the bub off, and come back for a schooner.
Yes. What about the boys in the booth? Anyone ever got you starstruck there, Mitchie?
I gigged a couple of years ago with Sacha Baron Cohen.
That's a good one.
Borat. That one got me a little bit. That was kind of, you've really well and truly only ever seen him on the big screen or on TV. That was one that really didn't think he existed in real life. So when you actually see it. But no, that same night at the same gig, I actually met the director of Mr. In Between.
Oh, Nash
Edgerton. And that I fangirled a little bit on that because I'm a bit of a film TV nerd. But yeah, I loved meeting him.
Fangirl, fanboy? Fanboy?
Either way.
Yeah.
Denzel Washington.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
Matt
stop
Denzel.
it.
Matt Denzel.
Sorry.
Boom, mic
Go
drop.
on, no,
Bruce,
more than
press
that.
Bruce.
Literally, you
Like,
just Robert the
You look
Bruce.
like you're just
everyone.
about to leave. You can't just come and drop Denzel and then bounce.
Look at the great Scotsman. I'm Robert the Bruce.
And see you later. I worked at a radio station back in the UK, and he was a guest on one of the shows I
that's
worked
all
on.
time.
So we got to
Oh,
meet
wow.
Denzel.
Yeah.
Simon Pegg as well from all the...
No, we finished on Denzel.
Denzel,
Simon Pegg,
Denzel,
he's a
yeah,
legend.
just
I
Denzel,
like Simon
Denzel.
Pegg, but we finished on Denzel.
I was going to tell the story about the first time I met Mal Meninga, but Denzel seems to really have it, doesn't it?
Yeah, Denzel's winning over anyone.
Check out Levels Podcast. Now, more NRL news out of the Dragons HQ. Young gun Loco Pacifica Tonga has re-signed with the Red V till the end of 2027. Now, Scope, you are a big rap on this kid.
Yeah, people have been telling me about young Loco now for a while. So he played in the SG Ball Championship and in the SG Ball Premiership winning team for St George. And there is huge raps on him. We also seen him play for the under-19s, New South Wales under-19 State of Origin team as well. Just that big, young Pacific Islander player, plays big minutes now. I'd imagine he's from Tongan descent with the last name Tonga. Haven't looked into it that far, but...
So what positions would they be looking for him?
He's front row, purely front row. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. He's your alpha front row. Young up and coming, Payne Haas sort of type. Big body, gets through the minutes, got a good engine. This is all, I've only seen sort of, the one game of him playing in the under-19s, but he's a real player of the future. And it's something, it's a real position of need for him down there at the Dragons as well. They were linked to so many front rowers. When it felt like over the last 12 months, a dozen premier front rowers have been on the market and they've all been getting top dollar. So they've locked him up nice and early. And if he does end up playing in the next year or two, his value will skyrocket if he lives up to sort of what he's been doing in the lower grades.
So end of 2027, that'll take him up to what? If he was under 19s last year, we're expecting that'd make him 21, 22, end of 27.
Yeah, you'd think so. So I wouldn't be surprised if he debuts this year. We see him for a couple of games, and then I reckon we see a lot of him in 2026.
Yeah. What sort of, I know different players sort of age at different, we see halves, a lot of the halves seem to peak sort of in their early to mid-30s. What's for a front rower, what's the prime age you're looking at?
Well, traditionally it's, the mid-20s. If you feel like you get 100 games into you as a front row, you learn how to, I guess the basics of the position and you get the work ethic and you get the engine for it. But when you look at guys like Tino Fasul-Malawi and Payne Haas and those guys have just blown away, sort of those expectations. James Fisher-Harris himself, he took a while to get going. Adam Fanua-Blake, it took him to about his second or third stint. You'd say he probably maybe Manly got the best out of him when he would have been, mid-20s. And now Adam would be around the 30 mark. So, I'd say more often than not, you do have the outliers like Payne Haas and Tino's, but I reckon the 25 years, that's when they sort of get to their prime.
What, you're still here? Well, you can see more on the Joel and Fletch socials and catch us live on SEN Radio, you beautiful humans.